From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. Good morning to our friends over on YouTube and the real Cassandra, who's really excited about this morning's show. So are we, man. Thank you for your super sticker, by the way. Very, very grateful. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. We've got a packed show for all of y'all today, so I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of order into what we're doing on the show today. We're really going to start off with one data breach, but then a whole bunch of stuff that's really happening in the background that you're starting to kind of see come through, but I think we're still missing some pieces there, right? And then the second part of the show, we'll talk about some of the latest vulnerabilities and stuff going on that end as well. We did a whole show on Patch Tuesday yesterday, so you can go and check out all the latest stuff there. But let's now go ahead and get the show going. Join me for a double espresso, whatever coffee. If you drink coffee, tea, I know we're global, so there's people that might be cracking a beer right now, kind of finishing their day, whatever it is. We say coffee cup cheers, but just an overall cheers. My double espresso. Let's start off with Internet Archives. Remember the Wayback Machine? I mean, it's still around. The Wayback Machine kind of lets you call out BS of kind of what the internet looked like years ago. It's a really cool project. Apparently, they suffered a data breach after a threat actor compromised their website and stole their user authentication database that contained 31 million unique records. That doesn't mean there's 31 million victims. And I think this is one of those things where definitions and words matter. And this one specifically, when they say records, it could be 5 million people, it could be 2 million people with various records associated with that. So, there's no real information as of yet onto how they got in there. Troy Hunt of Have I Been Pawned? He's unbelievable when it comes to this stuff. They constantly getting shared with this type of information. He said that the threat actor shared the authentication database 9 days ago, and it's a 6.4 gigabyte SQL file named ia_users.sql. The database contained authentication information for registered members, including their email addresses, screen names, password change timestamps, bcrypt hashed passwords, and other internal data. See, so this is where the records come through. 31 million records could be, like I said, 5 million people, because all of these different data points are considered a record. At least the global internet definition of that. Okay. Hunt says there are 31 million unique email addresses in the database, with many subscribed to the HIPP data breach notification service. The data will soon be added to Have I Been Pawned, allowing users to enter their email and confirm that as well. So the passwords are kind of in there, and you kind of see this here as well. So yeah, it's bad. 31 million email addresses. I thought it was 31 million records. I missed that part in prepping for the show, so my apologies. 31 million unique email addresses in the database. So 31 million victims. So if you're there, make sure you kind of get that checked out. Marriott International, who's been part of multiple data breaches, in fact, 3 to be exact, from 2014 to 2020, with a big one happening there in the middle that exposed nearly 500 million people to people's stays. It was a global type of breach. They've now agreed to pay $52 million and make changes to bolster its data security to resolve state and federal claims related to the major data breaches that affected more than 300 million of its worldwide customers. The settlement was done with the Federal Trade Commission and a group of attorney generals from 49 states and DC. So there's separate settlements with Marriott. The FTC claims Marriott and its subsidiary Starwood Hotels and Resorts Worldwide's poor data security practices led to the breaches. The agency alleges that they failed to secure its computer systems with appropriate password controls, network monitoring, or other practices to safeguard data. The proposal, essentially the settlement now says that Marriott agreed to implement a robust information security program, which they already have. After their kind of second breach, they really kind of doubled down on it. So there's that. Marriott also settled similar claims by a group of AGs In addition to agreeing to strengthen its data security practices, they've also agreed to pay a $52 million penalty to be split by the states. So all in all, that's there. But I mean, again, this is as a practitioner, I'm one of those people that kind of looks at this and go, it's nice to bring this up to the boardroom. It's nice to share this with the executive, but 52 million is a slap on the wrist, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Marriott is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. A $52 million, I think, accounts for under 1% of their global revenue, which is nothing. So, if you want people to take cyber seriously, and regulators say cyber and data information is serious, then the fines and the penalties should reflect that. And they should reflect it in a way that helps drive that urgency to the company's steering committees, board of directors, and leadership to go, I don't want to be on the tail end of having to do that. However, that's not the case here. Like we saw with T-Mobile earlier this week, I think they got a slap on the wrist for 4 data breaches. It was like $30 million, right? And now we're seeing that with Marriott, 52 million. And that kind of shows you the disconnect between the regulators and the victims around how to address cybersecurity. So they're slapping in a fine, whatever that fine is negotiated, whoever's got the best lawyers, with the best reasoning can be like, 52 million, it goes this way. Every, attorney general will get $1 million, blah, 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 whatever the case may be based on your, whatever. I don't know how that $52 million pot's getting there, but I do know how these regulators work in the background, and they're ill-equipped to handle this. That island and continent of Australia is introducing a new cybersecurity law into Parliament called the Cybersecurity Bill of 2024. They're trying to codify security standards for smart devices, ransomware reporting, and the coordination of significant cybersecurity incidents. So, what's missing here? Standards. Not security standards for smart devices, cybersecurity standards for safeguarding customer information. A framework. A vague statement around having to encrypt critical data and segment your network and segment customer data so it's not in one place all together, right? Like our friends at MoneyGram just did. All of that matters. And yet, Australia going through with another law where they say, you've got to report ransomware to us. So they're increasing the cost on the victim, right? Because ransomware reporting or coordination, the coordination of significant cybersecurity incidents between private and public sector add to the legal cost. They add to the legal cost every time. In fact, the NTSC, Patrick Gall's organization, and I've had Patrick on the show multiple times over the years, right? He talked about just last year when we were in DC, 60% of data breach cost is legal. It's not even cyber, it's legal. And yet all we're doing is we're adding more legal steps to this rather than adding more steps to empower cybersecurity practitioners within organizations to really push forward with securing the data and adopting good security practices. Instead, they're worried about smart devices. I get it. Most of them come from China. Most of them are cheap. Most of them are insecure, especially when it comes to IoT devices. I get it. Not knocking that. Ransomware reporting, I get you kind of want to know the material loss to your economy from ransomware. Not that you're going to do anything with it, but you kind of want to have is you can put up a report and you can every once in a while tackle it. But again, they're missing the big one. And the big one here, folks, is standards. Standards around defending your business. Standards around defending the private data of your customers. Standards around ensuring that if you're in critical infrastructure, your business remains operable. Deterrence in a law. Deterrence against nation states that try to target your critical infrastructure. And again, Australia showing like the FTC with Marriott, showing like every congressional bill that's ever made it here in the United States or anywhere else in the world. They're incapable of making common sense laws. Incapable. The moment you codify a standard, security standard for data security, for PII security, kind of like what PCI does, right? The moment you do that, you give a blueprint of how organizations should go about. And if you just use the CIS top 10, nothing else, just take the CIS top 10, the Center for Internet Security, take their top 10, make those the requirement for every business that deals with an X amount of customers or over that has their personal information, and watch what that does in terms of resiliency in cyber. Just watch. Just watch. So the NSA cyber director, is saying espionage is now Russia's focus on their cyber attacks on the Ukraine. And you may ask why. Well, here's the big deal with this one. Russia's focus initially was wipe data, create absolute havoc with the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians, after some of the first wiper attacks, started understanding how to deter it. And by the way, there was a whole bunch of international assistance there, right? Like the US, there were the Europe, and so they had a lot of cyber talent going like, here's how these work. Here's how we create resiliency against wiper malware. And that's exactly what they did, right? So they created that resiliency. So now those wiper attacks just aren't as successful. They're not doing the same damage. So now they're moving to espionage. That's kind of the next step of the battlefield there. So there's that in that battlefield between Russia and the Ukraine. And what that means is not that wiper malware is going away. Wiper malware are just going to be around. And at some point, they're going to cross that threshold into the commercial realm. And oy vey to the day when an organization has its entire database used by a wiper malware. Imagine not a ransomware countdown to pay, or we're going to publish your information, but we're going to wipe all of your data. Those days are not far-fetched. I'm not wishing this happens, but I'm telling you it's coming. Just prep. So the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime is tracking a panoply of AI threats in its new report covering cybercrime in Southeast Asia. They're saying generative AI is helping cybercrime gangs create phishing messages in multiple languages, chatbots that are manipulating victims, social media disinformation en masse, fake documents for KYC to bypass KYC checks. They're using it to power a polymorphic malware capable of evading security software and to identify ideal targets, among other nefarious activities. Now, anyone who's been on any one of these AI conversations anywhere will tell you we knew at some point this was going to get to cybercrime, but here's what AI did. So for a while there, go back 20 years, getting into cybercrime was a big deal. You got to have technical capabilities. And over the years, that level has dropped, right? And lower and lower. And now more people can get into it. And now these cybercrime gangs that operate out of, kind of Southeast Asia and in countries and places like Vietnam and Cambodia and Nepal and Bangladesh and all of these other places are now able to use AI to really not only target English speaking, but Chinese, Russian. They're going after a whole world. They're going after people in India with all the different dialects that exist in India and Pakistan and Afghanistan and Iran. So we're seeing that really proliferate, and cybercrime is now really proliferating at an incredible rate. A number I saw from someone yesterday said that cybercrime is proliferating with AI at a rate greater than anything they've seen at any point period in time in history. So just keep that in mind. That's going to be significant as they focus more and more of that. And these deepfakes become even more emergent, and organizations are going to have to start defending it. And again, a lot of these deepfake crimes in Asia came from Vietnam and Japan, with the most rapid use cases coming from the Philippines, which experienced the 4,500% increase between 2022 to 2023. So this is underpinning just how fast this technology is evolving in the realm of cybercrime. JamesCesar.substack.com. You can find all of the latest writing. Now let's get to vulnerabilities on the far end, the quick part of the show here for all of y'all. If you're using Palo Alto Pan OS firewalls, you may want to make sure you get those patched up immediately. The flaws in the Expedition solution, which help migrate configuration from other Checkpoint, Cisco, or other vendors. This can be exploited to access sensitive data, such as user credential that can help take over the firewall admin accounts. multiple vulnerabilities in the Palo Alto Expedition could allow an attacker to read Expedition database contents and arbitrary file, as well as write arbitrary files to temporary storage locations on the system. Multiple CVEs here, all 2024, 90463, 90464, 90465, 90466, and 90467. There is a proof of concept exploit available, and you want to make sure you get those patched up. Firefox also released a whole slew of updates. That's Firefox 131, addressing a exploited in the wild zero-day remote code execution vulnerability. That's CVE 2024-90680, a high severity use after free issue in the browser animation timeline. So you want to make sure you get that patched up. CISO are also revealing that there's an active exploit that's in the critical 40 OS remote code execution vulnerability that's in the wild. That's CVE 2024-23113. It's caused by the FGFMD daemon accepting an externally controlled format string as an argument, which could lead an unauthenticated threat actor to execute commands on arbitrary code or unpatched devices. It's a low complexity attack, doesn't require user interaction, so it's pretty easy to take advantage of. If you're using that, you want to make sure you get that patched ASAP. And Discord was blocked in Russia and Turkey since yesterday due to what they call illegal activity residing on the platform, leaving some legitimate users unable to visit the website or connect to the service. While Discord started as a communication and community building space kind of for gamers, it's since expanded to include a broad spectrum of interest groups and professionals from various industries, allowing them to create servers where members can find dedicated channels for different conversation topics. The show is on Discord right now. We're live on Discord. So there's that there. So blocked by Russia and Turkey. The reason for it is because they can't control the conversations there. They can't control the conversation there. They're not going to let it run, especially in both of those nations, run by practically dictators. I mean, Putin is a dictator. There's no question about that. Anyone denying that is living in some sort of weird planet. Erdogan, an absolute dictator in Turkey. I know it's not popular to say, but Recep Erdogan is a dictator. He's been in rule in Turkey for nearly 20 some odd years. He's killed his opposition. He jails his opposition. Anytime someone with any sort of legitimate chances of defeating him in the polls, that person is somehow arrested. He's got the Vladimir Putin playbook of how do you stay in power for so many years until you die. And he's just following it to the T. The only difference is Turkey's a NATO country. And so that's why it's not popular to talk about it. So they're trying to use a whole bunch of stuff about how it violates a whole bunch of laws. Discord does not. That same agreement could be applied again to any other platform on the planet. So there's that. So that's it for our show this morning. Today, we'll wrap up the show. We'll be back on Monday. Tomorrow, for me, myself, it's the Day of Atonement. Tomorrow night, we fast for 25 hours for Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a day of atonement where we atone for everything we've done over the last year. And one of the key aspects of Yom Kippur is always asking for forgiveness from anyone and everyone you know. And I've spent the last year with all of y'all watching the show and tuning it, and it's been a very, very difficult year. So if at any point in this year I've said anything to offend you, I ask for your forgiveness. I thank you so much for your support. Please make sure to subscribe and follow the podcast. Until then, have a great weekend. Have a great rest of your day. And for those that are fasting for Yom Kippur, Gumar Khatima Tova, and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.